Hello, the internet, and welcome to another episode of
80-bit Podsmash,
where gaming goes to grab a beer. We are your hosts,
Penguin and Termite. That was a loud tink.
It was. I can see it.
Loud tink. 80-bit Podsmash, for those of you who aren't familiar, is a podcast about video games and where they intersect with things like culture, art, entertainment, and just the industry at large. And that's what we do. That's what we are.
Just to let you guys know, we have an episode 0 that goes in deep to who we are and where we came from, why we care about games, what our history is, what our pop culture history is. And so I definitely encourage you to go listen to that if you are new to us and you want to know a little bit more about the personalities you are hearing.
Yeah, and if you like us, of course, please listen to the rest of our 18 episodes. Which brings us to the fact that we are 19 episodes in.
All right.
Almost the big 2-0.
Please go and
excited.
Rate us on iTunes and write a review, if you will. That's the way that we can be discovered by the internet at large, and we need to expand our reach to provide better content for everyone.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. So, what's going on today, Mr. Termite?
Somebody here is without a phone.
I am without a phone.
What happened?
Penguin had a Google Nexus 5X, and I have had it for about a year. Almost exactly a year, actually, because it bricked yesterday, It bricked on Sunday. It gotten what's called a boot loop, where it just suddenly shut down on me, and then when it tried to come back on, it got stuck on the Google splash screen, and then it would flicker off and then flicker back on the Google splash screen, and nothing I could do could fix it. It's a well-known problem with that model of the phone. Fortunately for me, I was very, very lucky, and my warranty expires tomorrow, which is 2 days from the day that it
cutting it way too close.
Yeah, for real. It's very, very fortunate because I switched providers this year, and my new provider wouldn't offer me device protection on the phone, so I meant to circle back around to Google and just see if I could buy device protection directly from them, but I never got around to actually doing that. So the fact that it was still under warranty is very lucky. I shipped it off to LG's repair center in Texas. You dealt with LG
directly?
Yeah, I just logged into their website and set up a repair ticket and shipped that sucker off to Texas, but that means I'm sitting here pretty without a phone. It's a mixture. It's not the first time in my life I've been without my phone for an extended period of time.
Yeah, how does that make you feel?
It's annoying. But I had some friends of mine at church come up to me and say, I explained to them that my phone just bricked, and they just would not shut up about how iPhones don't do that. And I'm like, iPhones are the IPAs of phones. I don't want to hear it.
Hey, they kind of are. That's a good point. And iPhones do brick, and battery locks up, batteries flop and die, and you can't replace them. It happens.
They slow down the apps
they
for
do.
older models.
Yeah.
Stupid. So yeah, sure, your iPhone lasts forever, but Apple's going to intentionally slow it down because they're douches.
You know it was bad because Penguin here, he summons me over, and he's like a dealer or a creepy kid on the street with some candy. He's like, come here. I'm like, what's going on, man? And he shows me this Google phone, which I have a Nexus 6P, and I had the exact same thing happen to me a year ago. My phone was well under warranty, and I just dealt with Google to fix it. So he hands it to me. He's like, I think my phone is bricked. And I was like, oh, no. So the first thing I did was to try and boot it into recovery mode. You know it's a hardware issue when recovery mode doesn't even work. Yeah. Because that's on the firmware. That's on the the motherboard of the phone. Mm-hmm. That happens before anything is loaded out of memory. It's like the first thing that happens. And it wouldn't work.
Yep, it was.
So it's toast.
It's toast. So
luckily, we end the warranty, so you don't have to pay anything.
Yes, the warranty, and again, it was one of those things where it's like, please send us proof of blah blah blah, a copy of your receipt. And so I typed in my Google Gmail, and I was like,
here you go.
Found the receipt from Google Fi that again, lovelily said there the order date was January 9th, and it was January 7th. I was like, yes. Very pleased.
That's awesome.
Very pleased. So,
do you think you'll get a new one, or you think you'll get a refurbished one?
I don't know. I don't care. I just want something that works, and I am definitely going to circle back around to someone. Someone out there certainly is going to be able to offer me device protection, correct? Like, whether it's Google, like maybe I can go to Best Buy. I don't know. Please, there's got to be, if anyone knows where I can get insurance for this device, can I just pay someone money to say,
I think T-Mobile should be able to handle that for you.
They wouldn't because it wasn't their phone. Like, I didn't purchase it through them.
Weird.
Like, they allow it's a
They always like outsource it to a third-party company anyway. Like I have like Assurion or something.
Yeah.
Like I bought it through Project Fi, but
Yeah.
Assurion handles it.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping
They
I
make
can
the
get.
claims,
I'm hoping that I can just say, hey, can I pay someone money to just for this? So this next year, you know, at the end this time next year, I'll get another stipend for my work, and I'll be able to buy a new phone. Like, but I have to get through a year, so I just need to get through this phone. But it is cathartic. There's something kind of special about. I don't know. It feels like I'm off the grid. Like it's really annoying the first few days. Because of habits, like I want to reach for my phone.
Yeah.
And I haven't quite figured. Luckily, I'm working a late shift today because I haven't quite figured out what I'm going to do for my alarm. Because I use my phone for my alarm. I'll probably just force my wife to set an earlier alarm on her phone to wake me up, and then. But yeah, so that's going to be an interesting thing. But hopefully, my phone will be back before then. Yeah. But it's nice, you know, because after a while, you're just like, oh, it's nice to kind of break that habit every once in a while and just kind of be off the grid and do your own thing. Right. So, yeah.
There's like, I've noticed when I went a couple days without the phone too, it's happy. Like I'm happy to not be always on my phone. I'm happy to not check it. I feel unchained, kind of like free almost. Like, I can't be reached.
Yeah.
I can do whatever I want.
And I read 2 chapters of the book that I'm trying to get through.
Way of the King?
Way of Kings, just because I'm like, because normally I would like get distracted reading something on my phone, like articles and stuff. Yeah. But I was like, I don't have anything else to read, so blur, and I just hammered out a couple of good chapters.
And then I'm also made very, very much aware of how the phone is integrated into my life for good things. Like, how much money do I have? What's my credit card balances? Yeah. Oh, you want to do this? Let me add it to my calendar. Oh, you emailed me. I need to respond and add these people to the email and send information. Let me get to my computer first and have to handwrite some notes. Yeah, I'm a heavy user of like Google Keep notes and Evernote and like collaborating. So I always take notes with my phone. So there's very, very good reasons to have your phone.
Yeah, and it's just like whenever I'm on the road, you know, again, I have a 40-minute commute to my work. And whenever I'm on the road, I'm always worried that when I don't have my phone like this, when I'm in a circumstance like this, I'm always worried that I'm going to get into a wreck and not be able to call my wife or not be able to call AAA. Like there's a sort of slight paranoia in the back of my head that's always going on about that. But it was kind of funny because I went to go drop my phone off. I had to drive up into Fredericksburg to drop it off at a FedEx location on Sunday just because I wanted to get it. I wanted to get it shipped. I probably could have waited till today, but I wanted to get it shipped. I wanted to get out of my head space. My wife was on the phone having a really intense conversation with someone on the phone when I left, so I couldn't really communicate with her before I left, and I didn't have my phone with me, so I just had to kind of risk it, and I bought lunch while I was out. I was like, I'm just going to grab something that I think she'll like and hope that that's okay, because there was no way I had to contact her to say, hey, I'm getting lunch while I'm dropping this thing off at FedEx.
Oh, man, that's so crazy. Yeah. Oh, it's 2018.
It's little things, man. Yeah. Little things.
In like the 70s, right? That was like... You had to find a payphone and throw a quarter in it. Yeah. And like call home, hey, do you want to get lunch?
Or you just did it, you know? Like,
yeah, you just did it.
You just did it. I guess that's
crazy.
The way it used to be.
Yeah.
So
I always think about that when I don't have a phone. It's like, what did they do in the 70s? 80s?
70s specifically.
90s, I guess. I don't know. When did iPhones come out? 2003?
I mean, there were flip phones and cool, awesome, sweet, fun phones before that, before the iPhone was around. Yeah. So.
Well, I'm sorry you lost your phone.
It's okay. It's not as bad as it could have been. I could have had to drop $300 on a new phone this week, and that would have been rough.
I have a Pixel XL on the way. It's a $916 phone.
It was ironic because I heard you talking about that with someone at church on Sunday, and then lo and behold, mine. I just had to steal your thunder. Is what it was.
Okay. You can have it. My phone still works. The battery just sucks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's cool. It's nice that they'll replace it.
It's the warranty replacement of a phone that's old enough that they don't have anymore. So they're like, well, we can't replace your phone, but you paid into this warranty, so they're meeting their end of the deal to replace it with a working phone for the same deductible, but it's a newer phone. So that's pretty awesome.
Well, cool. Shall we move on to our DLC for the day?
All right, what you got?
All right.
Lay it on me.
So, hey, spoilers. Our main topic is about spoilers! We're going to be talking about spoilers and spoiler culture today, how it relates to video games. So, for DLC today, I decided to pull out a fun little thing. For those of our listeners who are familiar with Doctor Who, there's a running joke in the show that specifically deals with time travel. There's a running joke that whenever they give something away that's going to happen in another character's future, they say, oops, spoilers, or there's one particular character who says, you know, she's in love with the Doctor, and she goes, spoilers, because she doesn't want to give away details of their relationship that he doesn't know about yet.
Yeah.
So, it's a running joke, so I decided to kind of take that idea of, historical spoilers, if you will, and ask the question, if you could send a spoiler either in written or oral form to someone in the past, in history, who would you send a spoiler to, and what would you spoil?
All right, I'm going to get a little real.
All right.
Apparently, Adolf Hitler had tried to run for whatever political power office that form of government in Germany had at that time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even going to pretend to even know government structure. I don't know if he was a prime minister or a president or whatever kind of government they had, because I'm stupid and ignorant when it comes to German history. Haven't studied it. I don't know. But apparently, I was just recently told that Adolf Hitler had multiple attempts to try and win this and lost multiple times. Well, something happened and he managed to take office, but everyone thought they could control him. That's why he had it, which is very scarily close to the White House situation today, but we know whatever, so we're going to pass that. So what I would do is go back in time to the people who were involved with rising Adolf Hitler to the power that he had and tell them all about the Holocaust and everything that he's going to do and spoil all of it.
I probably should have laid some ground rules with this.
And would have saved a lot of lives.
You're not changing anything.
Oh.
The spoiler that you're giving doesn't change anything. It's just a, hey, sucker, this is going to happen and there's nothing you can do about it.
That's horrible.
Yeah, well, who would you spoil? Who would you spoil?
It wouldn't be that. Like,
yeah, now you feel like a jerk,
right?
Don't you?
Now somebody would oh no, that's.
I guess I'm the bad guy in this circumstance for not properly laying out the ground rules of this discussion. Make you seem like a jerk.
Well, let's reduce the weight of that by 8 tons and say I would go to Mark Hamill during the filming of the original Star Wars and say, hey, there's going to be 12 of these movies, and Darth Vader's your dad.
Nice. Yeah, that would be funny. My first one that came to mind is I would want to go back in time and tell Simon Peter during the first century that Jesus is going to die. But then I realized that Jesus already did that 1 million times throughout the course of the biblical narrative. He's like, hey, I'm going to die, guys. Hey, I'm going to die. Hey, I'm going to die. And they didn't listen to him.
Not to mention the Old Testament texts that already existed that prophesied about it happening anyway.
Yeah, so there's spoilers aplenty in regards to that. So
that was spoiled in Genesis.
Yeah, right? It was spoiled a long time ago. So I decided it would be more fun to go back in time to someone I hated in history, a historical figure I hated, and spoil something for them. So my first thought was, I'd like to go back in time to Roman era and tell Mark Antony that he was after Julius Caesar was assassinated, and then Mark Antony whips everybody up in a frenzy to go after the people who assassinated him. I hate Mark Antony. He sucks. So I would have told him, you're going to lose, you're going to get involved with some stupid Egyptian biddy, and you're going to die in a naval battle, and all of this is not going to go the way you think it's going to go, bro.
And he can't change it.
So so
all he can do is be well, crap.
Sucker! That, or I would spoil, one of Shakespeare's plays for him. Be you're still going to write it. Plus, I like the idea of, the bootstraps paradox that might create, where it's oh, hey,
I'm creating this because it was spoiled.
Yeah, I'm creating it because I gave you or you're creating it because I gave you the idea. So where'd the idea come from? Bootstraps paradox.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So
funny story.
Go for it.
The babysitter that was coming to watch my son for my wife and I to go watch The Last Jedi is my mother-in-law, and with my mother-in-law came a note from my brother-in-law, her son, and we had some things we needed to discuss. So I thought maybe he was writing some thing to me that was more personal. He was trying to step out of the whole internet thing and write a hand note. So I took it seriously. I was yeah, I'm going to open this. Cool. And I opened it all up, and it was a major spoiler in the movie.
Yeah.
And it was a spoiler that I had predicted.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that's actually a spoiler, because
it's still a spoiler.
It just solidified it. And we'll get into more of that later, that I'm not super worked up about spoilers anyway. I don't like them, but I wasn't angered to the point of that. But he was definitely trying to exert some trollage there. The funny part was he guessed. It was never a spoiler. He had no idea.
What?
I assumed he looked it up.
I didn't know that part of the story.
Yeah, that came out more recent.
What?
Yeah. Yep.
Wow, that actually is kind of funny and kind of props. I got to give him some credit for guessing, because I've always wanted to do that, quite frankly. Just sort of make something up, and then it actually happened in a story. That's
he made it up to... Okay, so if
but it was kind of a...
he knew I would assume it as correct, And so, like, he wanted to like, I don't know how to describe what he did. It's like this meta thing. It's like,
right?
Because the whole thing that a spoiler does to you is wreck your perception of it or kind of ruin your raw, like, you have this untainted, unmessed up, original kind of virgin experience with the content, whether it's a book or a movie or a game, and a spoiler ruins that. And now you have a perspective to bring to it that you wouldn't normally have. And so, like, he did that, but if he was wrong,
then he wouldn't have done
then
that.
I still would have had the effect of being spoiled by expecting this event to happen. But if it didn't happen, would it have been a spoiler? I would argue yes. Because it would have changed my entire perspective of the movie, waiting for this event to happen, and it never did. The credits roll, and I'm like, this whole time I could have been not thinking about the spoiler that didn't exist.
Well, since we've properly segued into...
We did. This is our
topic now. Hey, guys, we're talking about spoilers. DLC is over like 5 seconds ago, and for our good friend Ryan, we were going to say... Bah, 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 bah. We had a specific request to bring back the rap horns. Bah, bah, bah. So, with that aside, I would say that it's a fine line, only because, like, if I were to come to you... Let's think of what's a well-known spoiler?
Darth Vader.
You
are my father.
Yeah, I'm your son. Sorry, spoilers for Empire Strikes Back. Luke Skywalker is Vader's son. If I were to come out and you hadn't seen, or no, better yet, if I were to tell Sam, when Sam is old enough to watch it, and you come to me and you say, "Hey Dan, I'm going to show Sam Star Wars," and you said, "Can you please not tell him the spoiler so that he has I get to film it. I can film his reaction."
Yeah.
And then I were to go up to Sam and say, "Hey, guess what? Han Solo is actually an alien shapeshifter," or something like that.
Crazy thing,
something crazy.
Yeah.
Would that be a spoiler? By your definition, you just said that. Oh, technically it would, because it would alter Sam's perception of the movie. But it's a flat out lie for anybody who knows Star Wars.
Right.
I don't think it's a spoiler, but I do think it's still a crappy thing to do.
Yeah?
Like,
so then we have to define what a spoiler is then.
Yeah, I would say a spoiler is, well, according to Wikipedia's
Yeah.
entry, it's specifically something that gives away relevant plot details to a story.
Okay.
That, or any relevant plot details.
And if you break that down, okay, so that's the definition of what the spoiler noun is.
Mm-hmm.
So the verb, the act of spoiling, can be defined, what I would define it as altering someone's perception of a content before they have a chance to view it for themselves for what the content is.
I don't know if I would agree with that definition entirely, but because I would still say that it would fall under, like, you're still spoiling. It still only counts as the act of spoiling if you ruin the experience in a very specific way by giving away plot details. Sure,
so what's
we can have
another
another word.
I don't know. Like,
I don't know.
Perception altering.
Jerkish.
Trolling.
Yes. Trolling is probably the closest thing we already have to a word. Maybe we can come up with I don't know, we'll just make up a word like schwartling. How about that? Schwartling.
Schwartling.
You've heard it first here, so when schwartling becomes a popular
Don't
internet,
schwartle me.
You just schwartled that for me.
He loves hot dogs. What? Don't schwartle me.
You just schwartled
the whole time I'm watching this. I want him to want hot dogs.
I don't know if this is a spoiler or a schwartle. We're gonna get that on t-shirts. Schwartle.
It's almost like a Squirtle, like the Pokemon.
Yeah, Squirtle.
Spoiler alert.
But
Yeah.
That joke is gonna get old really fast if we keep going. Anyways, I did want to get into a little bit of conversation about, like, the history of spoilers, like where it came from, because I think it's important. Because the big question that we want to ask today is, like, why are spoilers such a big deal? Like, whether it's a movie, whether it's a video game, like, why do we care so much? And I think it's specifically it's a very entirely cultural thing, because I did a little bit of research and read lots of articles and a lot of think pieces.
All right.
And there's a movement that's starting to say that, like, okay, the whole anti-spoiler, people getting so worked up about spoilers, it's starting to get kind of ridiculous.
Okay.
Like, it's starting to get to a point where it's like, sure, we should have some etiquette. There's still a thing, like, being polite and being kind. Like, so there is some nuance to this argument. But at the end of the day, like, there are certain things where it's just getting to be ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, anyways, in an effort to kind of talk about that, I did want to talk a little bit about the history of spoilers. Like, where did this concept of spoilers come from, and why is it so prolific in our culture now? The first use of spoilers as we kind of know them today...
Lay it on me.
...comes from the movie Psycho. And the director, Alfred Hitchcock, super famous director, he didn't want people to give... He encouraged his audience to not give away the twist to people that hadn't seen it yet. Mm-hmm. So he didn't use the word spoiler, but that was kind of the first essential use of it. Before that, spoilers, like before the 60s, before Psycho, like you would see spoilers like in the like plot synopsis of a movie on the back of the movie or on like before the movie came out. Like
it was way less guarded.
Yeah, didn't exist. Like I mean, just
this is what the movie's about.
This is what the movie's about, and here are the story.
Darth Vader, Luke's father.
Yeah, here are the story beats. Like it was just that was the way. Like it just wasn't a thing before this. Like it wasn't like people didn't care. In fact, specifically, they wanted you to read their book or see their movie or listen to their like the radio drama. Like they wanted you to do it, so they would actually tell you essentially what the story was ahead of time. And like
it's almost synopsis. Like the twist wasn't made. It's like the content creator puts the twist in to draw money to make money, like to bolster their thing. Yeah. And so if you ruin it, then you ruin their content. And
but it's almost like
sell.
It's almost like audience members didn't care before. Right.
Yeah. I'm trying to say it's hard. It's hard to talk about. I don't know how to put it to words. It's like I'm making this story. I'm gonna flesh this story out, and I'm purposely putting a twist in to make it more valuable.
Yes,
that's newer than that's a more modern thing. Yeah. Back then, here's my story. Come watch it. Come see it. Go talk about it. And here's the synopsis on the back because the story is going to sell itself because it's good.
Yeah, but and this is an idea that we'll hit on again, I think, in the course of the podcast. But there's this sense. There are actually studies that support the idea that like a good story is a good story whether you know what's coming or not. Right. Like a good narrative stands on its own. Like you don't have to have the like you were saying earlier, if you will, virginal experience of seeing this movie, and like it's not going to be, you can appreciate it as much or more if you know what's coming. I mean, that's why we play the same video game over and over and over and over again. Like if it's a good video game, it's got a good story, if it's got good elements to it, like we already know what's coming, but we still, I can't tell you, I would have to count on 3 hands the amount of times I've played through Ocarina of Time. Like I play it and I still enjoy it. There's no big
twist though. It's like,
but even so, like the experience itself, like I know what's coming. It's not like I'm,
Oh, so if someone came to you and said, "Oh, the last battle with Ganon, you're gonna play pinball," or I'm sorry,
ping pong?
No, the table tennis, ping pong. Yes, duh. Yeah, you're gonna play ping pong with Ganon or the Ball of Light and the Master Sword. If you did that today, you would be like trashed on Twitter.
Completely.
All your followers gone, lambasted across the board on all the comments. If you spoil the last boss fight experience for me, but like back then when the game came out in '96, like I would have wanted to know that. Yeah, like, that's exactly. A good tip. I know what to look forward to.
Yeah, good to know. Exactly. So it's just this, it's a recent thing, anyway. So to carry on with kind of like the appearance of spoilers in the culture, the next place where it really showed up, there was a National Lampoon, which was an old magazine, an old comedy magazine.
Was it really?
Yeah.
I thought it was just the movies with Chevy Chase.
Well, it was National Lampoon became a brand, and they made movies. Yeah, but there used to be a magazine, and so they had an article in their magazine that was titled "Spoilers." Was one of the first printed uses of the word. And that's what the whole article was just a bunch of spoilers. Like, was a bunch of twists. Like, it was a bunch of plot beats in movies. Out. Yeah, they just they printed it and published spoilers, and it was titled Spoilers, and it was one of the first uses of spoilers in history. And then the way we know it now, it began to really take off. There were a bunch of like online forums back in the early 90s when the internet was new. And they dealt with the X-Files. So a bunch of like, now it would be considered like dark web stuff, but I mean it was really just like early internets. And they would just they began to use the term spoilers to refer to X-Files episodes. And it was really funny because you can even see like early comments of people being like, "What are spoilers? Is this something from the show that I'm supposed to know about? Like what a spoiler is?" And it's like, no, it's essentially like meta commentary about the episodes. And that's where it really began to take off and really began to get speed, was on the internet in those early days. Mm-hmm. And then now it's a thing. Like now it's like
totally
a touchstone of our modern culture and the way we consume content, media.
Every single person says, I'm going to stay off of social media leading up to the release of this movie because I can't see it on launch day.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Or I'm going to go see this on launch day to avoid spoilers.
So I don't have to worry about it, yeah. So which, again, that brings me to segues as well nicely to our next question, which is, in regards to spoilers, who bears the responsibility? The spoiler, or the person doing the spoiling, or the spoiled, the person who is at risk of being spoiled? Like, whose fault is it, essentially, if someone's spoiled, or like who's in trouble? Like,
I think it's almost like 50-50. Because as someone who doesn't want to be spoiled, there's action you can take to avoid it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You can see it immediately or read the book immediately. This actually, in defense of the... Okay, then it's 50% for the person who's spoiling it, because they're spoiling it when maybe they shouldn't. And so when the release of one of the later Harry Potter books, I think it was book 6, apparently someone had got the book first, flipped to the back, and found out that, here's this giant spoiler, that Snape kills Dumbledore. And it like drove down the line of people that were outside waiting to get their copy and yelled it from the car. Snape kills Dumbledore, it's on this page, and was like, and just kept yelling that as it drove down the line, spoiling it for everyone.
Yeah, and there was a similar...
And so in that case, that's 100% on the spoiler.
There was a similar spoiler with, sorry to bring it up again, Star Wars, The Force Awakens, the 7th movie.
Yeah.
Someone walked out of the theater and yelled the big spoiler from that movie.
Okay.
And he got beat up. Physical violence occurred. Like, people in line started beating him up. So it's like, okay, which is the worst sin here? Like, if we're talking about which is
overreaction,
the worst... overreaction versus the person who did... Like, again, it was not a nice thing to do, but did he deserve to get beat up? Like, did he deserve physical violence? Absolutely not. That is an obscene overreaction.
Yeah.
So, I think the conversation is... I think it is very, very nuanced.
There's only so much action you can take to defend yourself.
There are circumstances, yeah.
So you can't help the guy running out the theater yelling it. You can't help the guy driving down the line yelling.
But it's also, on the other extreme, it's also ridiculous to demand that people not talk about the things that they're passionate about, that they want to talk about, that they want... That's so stifling. Like, if I have to tiptoe every conversation I have with people at work all day because I'm not sure who has seen or hasn't seen the latest Game of Thrones episodes, like, that's
have you
really
seen it? Have you
frustrating.
Seen it? Like, you're tiptoeing. Have
now,
you seen it?
Granted, I was still
too loud.
I think that, like, the polite thing to do is if I come up to you and say, "Hey, Danny, did you see the new Game of Thrones episode?" And you say, "No, I didn't." Then I'll say, "Okay, cool. I'm not going to spoil anything." Like, that's still polite, instead of come up to you and say, "Hey, did you know Lord Farquaad died?" Like, like, wasn't that crazy? Like, I haven't seen it. Like, that's a jerk thing to do. So it's really like, I mean, you could really break it down and go through and say, like, this is the right way to do it. This is a jerk way to do it. This is the right way. So again, whether your brother intended to spoil it or not, whether he guessed or not, brother-in-law, like, the fact that he still did that was still a really crappy thing to do.
He's definitely not...
Like, that was not ignite... Like, I'll avoid using the word nice, because I don't really personally like the term nice.
Yeah.
I will use the word kind instead. That was not a kind thing to do. That was not thinking about you and what you wanted out of the experience. Not at all. That was just being
that was actually
jerk.
Taking away from...
Yeah, it was intentionally being a jerk. Yeah, and that's... So it's like, there are behaviors that I think are unacceptable, but there are also behaviors that I think are unacceptable on the other side. The person being spoiled, like... There is some responsibility you own for avoiding spoilers. So, I got a big spoiler of speaking of Game of Thrones, I got a big spoiler about 2 seasons back, but I kind of counted it as my own fault, because even though it was kind of crappy that a person linked an article that contained a big spoiler, at the end of the day, like, I shouldn't have been on Facebook if I wanted to avoid spoilers. Like, we have to accept at some point that there are places that we are at risk of encountering spoilers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so just avoiding those things.
Yeah.
If you hear someone strike up a conversation about the latest thing you're about to go see, like when you're in a common area at work and you're talking about Star Wars with a coworker who's seen it and you're excited about it, if you come upon that conversation, maybe don't join them.
Yeah.
Or, hey, I haven't seen it yet, as you kind of approach.
Yeah. Just sort of say, like, hey, guys, like, not being a jerk about it, not being, like, snooty or passive-aggressive, just sort of saying, like, hey, guys, I really want to avoid spoilers, and I hear you guys are talking about X show. Could I, or X movie, like, can you just let me like go in, get my cheese sticks and or whatever, like kind of like, you know.
And then there's the one aspect of this entire thing we haven't considered yet. Does it really matter? Is it worth any of that just to avoid a spoiler?
So that's a great question. We're going to link off to a bunch of articles, and almost every one of them is a couple of Cracked articles, a Kotaku article, and an article from Slate.com. In all 4 of them, they mention a 2011 study done by the University of California that basically was the results they were starting to see was that spoilers don't actually ruin the experience for people who are seeing a story for the first time or seeing a piece of content for the first time.
Interesting.
In fact, they argue that spoilers, like going in knowing the major plot beats of a story, actually enhances the experience. It makes it better. This is something we can obviously see through the concept of reruns or binge watching, or what we were talking about before, playing the same game over and over again because we like it. If there's a part of us that says if we know what's coming, we can actually appreciate the story on its own merits. Because again, what that study, like what their conclusions they drew was a good narrative is a good narrative, no matter whether your experience going into it was quote unquote virginal or not.
Right.
Like, sure.
Yeah, okay, let's talk about The Matrix, the movie.
Sure.
I had to rewatch that movie again after the first time through, because when you learn that the real world is actually like the Matrix for your body, the real world versus what we are, like the office work life that Keanu Reeves starts in the beginning of the movie, his body's actually in like some battery like tube that's controlled by machines. When you learn that weird plot twist, you rewatch it with that mindset, and it's a totally different experience.
Everything, yeah.
Right? So if someone came up to you and said, hey, when you watch this movie, know that whenever Keanu Reeves thinks he's a grown man in our world doing our thing, he's actually just like locked up in some tube somewhere. You think about that, The Matrix is still awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
If someone spoiled that, someone could get really mad, but if you had a right mind about it, so to speak, maybe you don't get mad about it. Maybe you're like, okay, thank you. And you take that spoiler with you to the theater, and you're like, all right, here we go. Keanu Reeves is actually in a battery. He's actually a battery. He's actually
so that thing makes more sense. That
makes more sense. So you actually will have a still virginal experience, but it will be different than the other person who doesn't know crap about it. Now, I went into that entire movie blind in high school. I had no clue what it was even going to be about. That was a whole different thing. But even take the Darth Vader Luke dead thing. If someone came to me and said, "Hey, actually, it was revealed in this movie that Darth Vader's Luke's dad," you're like, "Okay, so you're watching Episode 4, A New Hope." And you have that mindset. As a new Star Wars person who doesn't know anything about Star Wars, that was me. I knew Vader was Luke's dad before I saw anything. I had no idea what Star Wars was. I don't know what a lightsaber is or the Force. I just know it's part of culture and everyone talks about it. I don't know who Yoda is. So, like, here I go watching these movies. It didn't mess anything up. I freaking love Star Wars.
And you will still watch them over and over again.
So I would almost argue that any violent response to any spoiler, even today, is unnecessary.
Absolutely.
Just take it with a grain of salt. Okay, you had it spoiled. All right, okay.
Go and watch, like, you had it spoiled. Now appreciate the experience for what it can be with that information in mind. Yeah, I think that's really good, really important. So there is one more kind of like piece of the puzzle, like piece of, let's say, etiquette. Let's say there's a piece of the etiquette that I would like to sort of discuss, and I would like to talk about the issue of what we'll call the time frame issue. So if we're looking at the etiquette of like, okay, I should behave this way in regards to spoilers just to be kind. Like, just because even if I acknowledge that, again, the science is showing that spoilers don't matter, the spoiler bubble, if you will, I think the spoiler bubble is going to pop. In fact, one of the Cracked articles basically says that, like, this whole anti-spoiler bubble thing, like, it's gonna pop. We have this brief period spike in history where it's all the rage, and then at some point it's gonna be like, it's gonna go back to the way it was. It's gonna be like, whatever, it doesn't matter
can't
anymore.
Come soon enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool your jets.
Right?
It's okay.
Exactly. So I think that we will eventually get there. But in regards to where we are now, let's talk about etiquette. Let's talk about being kind to one another. And let's talk about this time frame issue. Which is like, what do you think is a proper, like, obviously we've been sitting here spoiling Empire Strikes Back with impunity.
And The Matrix. Yeah.
And The Matrix with impunity for the past.
And Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, exactly. So we've been spoiling these things.
Ganon.
But we can all kind of agree that, like, okay, it's been out for 20, 30, in some cases, 30 years. Zelda has been out for 20 years. Yeah. So, like, almost all of these properties, I think the latest one would be The Matrix, which came out in 2001,
Yeah.
2000 or 2001.
Yeah, I think I want to say 2001. But
Yeah, and so again, that's
15, 16 years
math,
old,
yeah,
17.
Math. Thank you, math for me.
Yeah. It's 2018 minus 1.
Yeah. So we can talk about that with impunity. So obviously, there's some sort of like time frame that comes into effect where we're like, it's okay because if you haven't seen it at this point, like that's on you.
Right.
What do you think that time frame is? What do you think if we could agree on a rule that says, say an episode of Game of Thrones comes out tomorrow?
I think there is an expectation, or a correlation of your more violent reaction towards a spoiler equals passion for that content. And if you have that much passion for the content, you're going to devour it sooner rather than later.
Right.
There's a more of a relaxed, I'll get to the latest Star Wars when I can get a matinee and the theater's empty. Yeah. And then there's the person I have to be there on Thursday night, preview night, I'm going to dress up. And if you spoil it for that guy, he's probably going to be mad.
Sure.
If you spoil it for the other guy who's going to wait 2 weeks. So you have to find what
about the guy who's super passionate about something, but for circumstances beyond his control, can't go see it right away?
That's unfortunate. But I don't know, coming up with some sort of arbitrary time frame, it depends on the content too.
So you're saying
if you take Horizon Zero Dawn, which is a 100-hour video game, there's a giant plot twist at the end that you wouldn't want to bust. But if the game comes out, there's some people who are going to devour that game in 2 days. So games are released on Tuesdays. This guy's got it done by Friday. Mm-hmm. Now, the mass, everyone else who needs to experience the game for what it is, they won't finish it for 3 months. So it depends on the content, too. So Is it a giant book with a spoiler at the end that's going to take people some time to get through and read? Is it a movie that you can just go see in one night in 2 hours? So it depends on it. So maybe a movie, 2 weeks is kind of just... I'm feeling
very early time.
Yeah, give it 2 weeks and then you can kind of talk about it a little open. If you really wanted to see the movie and you're upset about spoilers, 2 weeks is a really good buffer for
I would say
life circumstances.
I would say a little bit later. I would say somewhere between 30 and 40% of the time that it's in theaters. Does that make sense? So if a movie is the movie comes out in December and is in theaters until, let's say, February. Let's be generous and say February. That's 3 months.
Yeah.
Give or take, a little bit less than that, depending on its release date. I would say that within a month, if you really wanted to see it, you'd have a weekend or a day off where you could see it.
Yeah.
Whereas, and then definitely by the time it's out of theaters, you had your chance, you were going to go see it in theaters.
Yeah.
And I would say similarly with a season of a show, by the time the show's season is over, with a little bit of buffer zone, of course, for the last few episodes, it's had its runtime. You've had your chance. Spoilers are fair game. And this is just again, this is with this isn't in regards to intentionally going out of your way to spoil something. So for example, someone says, "Oh, hey, I'm interested in getting into Game of Thrones." I'm not going to sit there and it's a whole different thing for me to sit there and go, "Oh, have fun at the Red Wedding." That's just and that's not really a spoiler. That's just
look, you being sensitive right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Jon Snow dies. He gets murdered and he comes back for life.
Bro, he
just saying.
You're right. That's by my rules that happened 2 seasons ago. Yeah. So anyone who cares should have known. But that's what I'm saying. It's that's exactly what I'm saying. It's in casual conversation, you shouldn't be too afraid to spoil things that have existed a season ago, and that's for TV shows. Video games are a little bit grayer because a lot of people really care about a video game, but maybe because of other circumstances, or even maybe because of other choices, such as this game just came out, but I'm in the middle of this game. So, Mario Sunshine just came out, but I'm in the middle of finishing Nier Automata. That's not me.
Right.
Literally, but that's an example, a hypothetical person. I really want to finish Nier Automata before I start Mario Sunshine. Sunshine? Mario Odyssey?
What are we playing?
Did I say Sunshine?
What year is it?
So, in that case, again, that's where I would say that the crux of responsibility falls on the person being spoiled, again, barring any, ridiculously rude things.
Right.
But, that segues me into video games in general, because, my last question for the day, which is that, story isn't the only element of video games, that there's a subculture that's bubbling up that is...
Yeah, I got a perfect example for your question.
I was going to say, and bringing up Mario Odyssey, it's people would post GIFs on Reddit of things they were doing in Mario Odyssey, I'm I can throw my hat and control a Goomba, like, and people would be like, whoa, spoilers, like,
yeah, they freak out.
And they freak out, and it's this whole subculture, and it's getting, like I said, it's getting
crazy.
Ridiculous, like...
From what I heard in various podcasts, the end game of Mario is awesome. I'm not going to spoil it for you, right? So this whole time, I'm like, I just have to get through the levels. So as I'm playing the game, I'm like looking forward to this moment of like, what's this end game going to be? What's it going to be? What's it going to be? And I got to the last area, and I beat Bowser, which is not a spoiler at all. Like, and it happened. And it wasn't that big a deal. Like, it was, why did people want to hold... Okay, you go to Mushroom Kingdom, and there's some Mario 64, like, nods. You have a Mario 64 costume, and it has a lot of music. Like, you collect stars in that world instead of moons.
Which is a game you've already played.
Yeah, and, like, Mario Odyssey's been out for months now. It's not that big a deal. And then you can go back and open up these little moon crates that expand every one of the levels to have more moons. And I was like, that's not a big deal. The fact that you felt like you had to step on eggshells when talking about it is indicative of this problem we have of like this spoiler culture, offensiveness, anger, vitriol thing. It's like people get mad over, oh, you threw your hat into a Goomba, you can control it. Oh, and then they also get mad at, oh, this endgame Mario Odyssey is crazy, we don't want to spoil it. I'm like, no, it really wasn't that big a deal.
Yeah, and it's like I get not spoiling like major gameplay twists because that, or not gameplay, major story twists. I do get that. I'm sympathetic towards that because again, I feel the same way in regards to movies and TV shows. Granted, all the things I've already said in regards to like, if you want to avoid spoilers about major story beats, you avoid spoilers about major, like it's up to you to avoid those spoilers. Right. Like it's not up to people to tiptoe around you unless it's a direct conversation. Like, unless I'm going to say, hey, the big twist in Nier Automata is this. You haven't played it yet, Termite. Like, that would be jerkish.
And even thinking in hindsight about Horizon Zero Dawn, there was also podcasts about the setting of the game being a major spoiler. And I was like, so as I'm playing the game, I finished the game and still was like, oh, that was the setting, I guess. Like, it wasn't, like, why are you scared to talk about the setting? It's post-apocalyptic Earth. Yeah. Like, you see remnants of skyscrapers of an old city. Yeah, it's like, not it's on Earth and in the future. Like, why is it even a spoiler? Because it might be Detroit? Like, okay, but like, that ruins everything. No, it doesn't. It's just the setting.
Yeah, but it's not even... Yeah. And,
it's okay, people.
And story is one thing, but I'm also like... But when you start talking about, like, gameplay things, it's just ridiculous. Like I said, like we said earlier, in a previous era of video games, we would have considered that a nice tip.
Yeah, like we'd be clamoring to find that. Like in a magazine, it would sell like crazy.
If you said, "Oh, hey, like check behind when you finish fighting Shadow Link in the Water Temple in Ocarina of Time, make sure to check behind the chest for a time block that you can play the Song of Time," that would have saved me hours of wandering around the Water Temple trying to find where I'm supposed to go. Right. Like, that's it's just so weird how our culture has, and I don't really know anyone personally who acts like that. Like, I can't really, think of anyone who, like, would freak out at me if I said, hey, you get to do this at the end of Mario Odyssey. Like, I don't really think anyone would do that. They might be a little bit irritated with me, but they wouldn't, like, it would not put our friendship at risk or anything stupid like that. But the fact that there is a culture out there that does that, I guess kind of bothers me. Yeah. And I think that I think that it's worth talking about because it's like, you're taking this idea of spoilers, which, you know, is a very, very nuanced issue in the first place, and then you're applying it to something so stupid that it's just like they're trying to get you to be excited about the game, like
like marketing and PR have changed drastically in how they portray any of their titles, trailers, printed ads, descriptions of the games as things come out. Like, they've now shifted to be less spoilery than they were back when you could just watch the whole synopsis on the back of the box or whatever, read it. I think that is good. Like, that's fine. I'm okay with that. Like, don't spoil the twist at the end of Horizon on the back of the box. Like, okay, maybe if I'm a little slow in playing it and 3 or 4 months goes by and I hear words or murmurings of something that might spoil the game, I'm 40 hours away from that. And I really don't know what that means yet. So when I do get the game finally and I sit down and start playing it, and I learn what the world is, and maybe I've already forgotten the spoiler, or it's not as impactful when it happens, and that's okay, because you kind of have the mindset of like rewatching a movie again before you have a chance to rewatch it. It's fine. We have to answer the question of what's the time frames that we set. We never did that. So like for a game like Horizon Zero Dawn, I would say 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
Like it comes out in February, you have until June. That's 4 months. That's like the summertime. If you hear someone talking about it, it's fine.
Yeah.
You'll be okay.
Yeah. A thought just occurred to me while you were talking, and it's this. I'll end on a bit of a soapbox, I guess, here, and just say that like the idea that your experience is the most important. I think is really contributing to spoiler culture. Like, no, my experience is the most important experience.
Sounds very millennial.
It is very millennial, but the fun thing about video games is it's a shared experience. It's like, how many people have gone and seen something that someone's done on Reddit and then went and tried and recreate it? Like, sorry, you didn't have the experience first. Like, if you want to talk about a virginal experience, like, you're trying to recreate something that someone else has already done. Like, but that's fine. That's okay. Like, that's good. Like, you have to, at some point, accept the fact that, like, all entertainment and all media is, to some regard, a communal thing, a community thing. It's your individual experience doesn't really matter in the big picture. It's important on a microscopic scale, but on a macroscopic scale, it's just one little piece of a mosaic that entertainment is. So it doesn't really...
And if something was written or made just for you, and you spoiled it for someone else, it wouldn't even matter.
Yeah.
The complete antithesis of what you just said. This book was written for me. Then you go up to someone else and be like, hey, did you know this happened in the book? And they're like, I don't care.
I don't care. Yeah, like
the fact that it is communal is why it's controversial, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But that's also what gives it its value. That's what gives entertainment its value, is just something that we can all sit together and say, like, wow, that crazy thing happened, isn't it great?
Yeah.
So if someone accidentally spoils something for you, like they're like, you have to kind of think about it from their perspective. Is like they're just really excited about the thing that happened. Like, I really, 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 really want to spoil something that happens in BioShock 2 for you, but that's only because I'm so excited about it. Like, and I want to discuss it with you. Now, I'm trying to be polite and say, like, I want to let you get a hold of it and play it because I do want you to have the same experience that I did.
Right.
But we as humans, when we have an experience, part of getting other people to experience that experience is by talking about it with them and talking about why it was so great.
Yeah.
Because I have no idea whether or not you're going to have the same reaction to that sequence in BioShock 2 that I did.
Right.
So part of me wants to say ahead of time, like, this is what you need to appreciate about it so that you do go into it appreciating that.
Yeah.
You know,
and
that
kind of set me up to have the same experience.
Set you up to have the same experience.
Building others up.
Yes.
You know, that's what we need to be highlighting more than ever in our culture today.
And I hope that's what we do in our podcast. I hope we do try to emphasize that.
So in our critique of spoiler culture and the vitriol it creates, I'm trying to free everyone of this pressure.
Yes,
like, exactly. I'm trying to build you guys up by freeing you of the pressure. One, spoilers aren't as important as you think they are. Your experience of something isn't as important as you think it is.
Yes.
And have a little etiquette with others, but don't be ridiculous.
Be kind, I think, is kind of the best.
Be kind to one another.
Like, be kind is...
We need that more today than ever.
So it's being kind on
Let's make 2018 a year of kindliness and building one another up on social media and on the internet and in the people you know.
And also darkness. Sorry, I had to bring a little bit of my cynical side into as well. But yeah, the general idea is like kindness on the part of the spoiler, the kindness on the part of the person saying, okay, I value our friendship enough that I don't want to spoil this for you. I want you to have the experience you want. But then also kindness on the side of the spoiled.
Right.
Where if a spoiler happens...
This is not the end of the world. I'm not going to not play the game anymore. I'm not going to just be like, well, screw that.
And just be gracious. Be like...
Okay, well, I'll know what to look for.
That's cool. Thank you for the input, and you know what? And then just like find it inside yourself to be like, have the strength of character to be like, okay, cool. Like, I'm not going to let that ruin the experience for me. Like, in fact, I'm going to try to find a way that enhances the experience for me. Like, yeah.
I want to one more tidbit.
Yeah, do it.
What's the biggest spoiler that happened to you that someone spoiled something for you?
I'll have two examples. I'll do a video game example and I'll do a TV show example. The TV show example for me would probably be the aforementioned Game of Thrones spoiler.
Okay.
At the end of a specific season. It wasn't even... It was so frustrating because the spoiler, like the title of the article that this person linked wasn't a spoiler in and of itself, but it was the combination of that title with the image. And it was like, a big important character dies in the last night's episode, and then it had a picture of that exact character that died. I was like, are you freaking kidding me? It was so frustrating. So that was probably the most frustrating spoiler I had, just because it was literally hours before I was going to go see it. It was really funny because I went to go see it with our friend Nathan and his wife Evelyn, and call out Nathan if you ever listen to this. And
he doesn't care.
And we all sat down for dinner, and then one by one we all confessed. We were like, yeah, it was spoiled for me. You too? Oh, it was spoiled for me too. It was kind of funny. It was an episode of Game of Thrones.
Oh,
that was when we were sitting down and watching it with them.
Right.
And it was hilarious because each and every one of us confessed, because we went into dinner and no one had said anything, and then it was like, guys, I have a confession to make. This episode was spoiled for me. So then we ended up getting to talk about the spoiler because all of us had been spoiled at some point in the day.
It was almost a whole new experience.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. So that was one spoiler. And then only because I've recently played through it, it wasn't a big deal because, again, the game is 10 years old, almost 10 years old. But I've been recently catching up on BioShock 1 and 2, as I mentioned in a previous episode.
Yep.
And going through the game, knowing the big spoiler of BioShock 1, didn't ruin the experience. The game was still amazing, but there is a moment in the game where you basically come around a corner and see something that is meant to elicit oh my gosh moment, and that moment was admittedly less impactful because I knew the spoiler. So yeah.
Huh. I've been racking my brain the whole time you were talking about what mine are, and I have no idea. I have no idea what a big spoiler for me was. I don't think anything has been ruined.
A couple of friends mentioned the fact that sometimes in DLC, I pose the question and then you answer it and I don't actually answer it. Well, this is a moment where the exact same thing happens, so I'm going to let it stand.
Nice.
But anyways, yeah, let's end there. Again, guys, thanks for listening. Give us feedback. Let us know what you think about spoilers, what you think about spoiler culture. Do you think it's a bunch of much ado about nothing, or do you think it matters? Do you think that the points we made are valid, or do you think we're completely off base? Let us know, what's the biggest spoiler you've had. Tell us on Reddit. We'll post on Reddit a thread about this.
Yep, there's a subreddit, 80-bit Podsmash, all one word. We are on Twitter at 80-bit Podsmash. We have a website. You can leave comments on every episode on the website at 80bitspodsmash.com. So it's all lowercase, no hyphens, no spaces, no uppercases and stuff. It's very simple. 80-bit Podsmash, all one word.
.com.
.com.
All right, guys, it's been real. Have a great rest of your week.